Okay, here we are. We're going to break down natural selection so that you can understand kind of how it works. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So natural selection is this idea that inherited traits within a population change over time. So any given population of organisms can have the traits of that population change over a period of time. Those traits that are successful, the ones that help an organism to survive and to reproduce, are selected by the environment. So the environment determines which traits are successful and passed on to the next generation. Those traits which are harmful to the population are weeded out of the population over time. So in our little picture here, you can see that the birds easily are able to see the green beetles. They eat those ones a lot. The brown beetles are a little bit more camouflaged and less likely to be eaten. The brown trait is successful, helps the beetles to survive and therefore to reproduce. And that trait then gets passed on to their offspring over time, in which case we will see that the inherited traits of the population will change over time, natural selection. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so let's take a look at another example. We have a population of mice. There is a natural variation within the population where some mice are brown and some mice are black. This population of mice moves into a new location. In that new location, the ground is dark. So the black mice blend into their background better, and the brown mice stand out. So the birds are able to easily eat the brown mice, but hardly ever eat the black mice. These ones stay camouflaged. And so therefore they pass on their trait for black fur to the next generation, which means the next generation will have more mice that are born with the black trait than tan mice. And so the population is therefore changing over time. All right, so let's talk about inherited traits versus acquired traits. This is an important distinction. So inherited traits, as you might guess, are inherited. So these traits come from your parents and are controlled by your genes. These could be things like eye color, hair color, predisposition to some types of cancer, things like that. Acquired traits, however, are traits that you pick up during your lifetime. So this could be languages you speak, how kind you are, how well you play soccer, things like that. There was actually a famous scientist who studied this idea, and sadly, one of the ways that he studied this idea was that he chopped the tails off of mice and then mated those mice together to see if the baby mice would be born without tails. Now, in the modern day of like watching TV and seeing all the CSI crime stuff, and we know a lot more about DNA now, we all think that that's very silly. But back then, they didn't really know what determined how an organism would be born with certain traits. So this was one of the ways that he tried to prove that. Kind of crazy, right? Okay, that's it for this video. Answer the questions on the next slide.